Malcolm "Mac" Baldrige was known as one of the most influential and longest-running Secretaries of Commerce. As a man of business, Baldrige set out to ensure that business and commerce were protected during a time when there was a lot of worry and concern over business practices. Baldrige's influence as Secretary of Commerce relied on his Western charm and his moderate business practices after years of leading a company from ruins to success. Baldrige was born on October 4, 1922, in Omaha, Nebraska. His father, Howard Malcolm Baldrige, was a U.S. congressman representing Nebraska's 2nd District from 1931 to 1933. While Baldrige's father was away in Washington, D.C., the Baldrige family grew up in Omaha. Yet the family was hit hard by the Depression in the 1930s, says Letitia Baldrige, younger sister to Malcolm, in her biography on her website. Malcolm Baldrige had 2 siblings growing up. There was his older brother Bob and his younger sister Letitia. Letitia describes her experience growing up as being the bane of the boy's existence, but eventually each Baldrige sibling grew to be close friends. Baldrige attended the Old Columbian Elementary School as a child. When Mac was older, he attended Omaha Central High School until 1938, when his family would move to Woodbury, Connecticut. Had the Baldrige family stayed in Omaha, Baldrige would have graduated from Omaha Central High School in the class of 1940. In 1938, when the Baldrige family moved to Woodbury, Connecticut, Baldrige attended the Hotchkiss School in Lakeview. After graduation from the Hotchkiss School, Baldrige attended Yale University and got his bachelor's degree in English in 1944. Before forming a career, Baldrige joined the U.S. Army and served in combat as captain in the 27th Infantry Division. Following his service in the Army, in 1947 Baldrige was hired at Scoville Manufacturing Company in Waterbury, Connecticut. Between 1947 and 1960, Baldrige rose from the role of foundry hand to president of the country. Scoville Manufacturing had been failing as a business, but Baldrige was able to utilize better business managing techniques and turn the fate of the business around. Baldrige was known to be ruthless and blunt when it came to the reorganization of the plant. While some people did get laid off, the effect it had, along with increasing the production, made the company grow and gain money. At the time, Scoville Manufacturing became a Fortune 500 company and made many products, including Yale locks and Hamilton Beach. Along with helping improve his company, Baldrige also made a local hero out of himself when cities in Connecticut were the centers of riots after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm Baldrige Jr. agreed to join peaceful demonstrations in the streets to protest violence. The notion that he did that with the people from all walks of life made him a bit of a hero in Connecticut, says James P. Moore, Jr., who worked for Baldrige as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Trade Information and Analysis and Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for International Economic Policy. Baldrige moved with presidents, prime ministers, and kings. He was always happiest with the straight-talking cowboys, says President Ronald Reagan at the 1988 awarding of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which Baldrige won posthumously. In 1962, Baldrige was a Chief Executive Officer and Chairman for Scoville Manufacturing. These positions were held by Baldrige until January 22, 1981. Along with being an active businessman, Baldrige was also a devoted Republican. Baldrige had grown up with a father who was a U.S. congressman, which ensured that Baldrige knew his politics. Reagan nominated Baldrige to be Secretary of Commerce on December 11, 1980. On January 22, 1981, Baldrige was confirmed as the 26th United States Secretary of Commerce. Within the first 200 days of Reagan's administration, there was a lot of policy change in the national economic policy. Reaganomics wanted to reduce government spending, reduce income tax and capital gains tax, reduce government regulation, and control money supply to reduce inflation. Before Reagan had been in office, there had been a time of stagflation, where there was rising inflation and unemployment. On Sunday, October 4, 1981, Baldrige released an article through the Washington Post service that helped to define and show support for Reagan's economic policies. Baldrige goes on to explain that individuals can't plan and follow through successfully. Neither can business nor the government. While in office, Baldrige was described as being a partisan without being too partisan, a Reagan loyalist but not an ideologue, and a millionaire businessman with a sensitivity for the working class. which made him a man that both Democrats and Republicans could agree with and support as a government leader. Along with supporting Reagan and his far-fetched economic policy, Baldrige was able to increase exports and foreign trade agreements. Baldrige lobbied for the passage of the Export Trade Company Act, which allowed companies to collaborate on joint ventures. Baldrige led businessmen on trade missions to northern Africa and Saudi Arabia. Baldrige supported trade to countries that many believe should not be traded with, such as the sale of American-made computers to Iran. In 1982, Baldrige was also faced with a conflict over steel export, where U.S. corporations were complaining about European steel companies unfairly subsidizing steel exports. The complaints triggered the worst trading year between the U.S. and its allies. Baldrige was able to settle the argument with a month of negotiations. While neither side were particularly pleased with the outcome, the action showed the public that Baldrige was able to handle and settle conflict without overturning much policy. Baldrige was criticized for some of his actions and his support of Reagan's economic status, but the criticism helped Baldrige cement his loyalty to Reagan's plan. Baldrige believed that the alternative would have been worse had he not followed Reagan's new policies. Another special event attributed to Baldrige was the first cabinet-level trade talks with the Soviet Union. Baldrige just so happened to be in Moscow when it was announced that Mikhail Gorbachev would become the new leader of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. Baldrige was influenced to meet with Gorbachev and became the first foreign guest to meet the new leader in his new capacity. While Baldrige was not a Soviet specialist, Reagan wanted to engage the Soviets commercially, and Baldrige jumped on the chance. Baldrige held the first trade talks with the Soviets in 7 years. Baldrige's successor, C. William Verity, an actual Soviet specialist, took over the Soviet trade agreements after Baldrige's death. Beyond the business office, Baldrige had a passion for horses and horseback riding that stayed with him through his entire life, and ultimately caused his untimely demise. At the age of 12, Baldrige started riding horses at a ranch he worked at during the summers. Throughout his life, he competed in many rodeos. Baldrige was an outstanding calf roper and often competed in the team roping event. Baldrige competed internationally for team calf roping. Baldrige was known in the Department of Commerce to have a saddle and rope in his extremely large office. Before foreign diplomats were to speak with him, he enjoyed roping the horn of his saddle. In 1980, Baldrige was named Professional Rodeo Man of the Year. In 1984, he was inducted into the Hall of Great Westerners at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. Then, in 1999, Baldrige was installed in the National Cowboy Hall of Fame. Baldrige and his wife Margaret, or Midge Baldrige, both shared a love of horses and often rode together on their estate in Woodbury, Connecticut. Baldrige died while in office in 1987. He was roping in a rodeo in California when the horse stumbled, threw him off, and then stepped on him. Baldrige was rushed to the local hospital, but suffered massive internal bleeding, which caused his death. Malcolm Baldrige was described as a man of few words, and only spoke when he believed he had something to say. As a moderate Republican, his business practices were supported by both Democrats and Republicans. Baldrige was the same person no matter what group of people he was with or what questions he was being asked. Baldrige was said to delegate authority and only hire people he trusted, and then let them do their jobs on their own. Because of the influence Baldrige had on trade management and economic advancement, the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program and the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award were formed. This program and award were designed to showcase the businesses that maintain high quality in order to compete in a growing and competitive world market. Quality and good business practices were values upheld by Malcolm Mac Baldrige Jr., the 26th U.S. Secretary of Commerce. In an interview with neighbor George Roberts, Baldrige was described as a very regular man. He maintained an average man appeal in his town of Woodbury, Connecticut. He was well liked by businessmen, presidents, foreign leaders, and the common people. By maintaining his values and morals, Baldrige was able to influence Washington to uphold itself in a high-quality manner.